The year was 1953. America was post-war, thriving, and full of change. Cars were bigger, the suburbs were growing, and coins were still one of the most used tools of daily life. In that year, at the Denver Mint, a Jefferson nickel was struck that would later gain a special reputation, the 1953D Jefferson nickel. At first glance, this coin doesn't seem extraordinary. On the front, we see Thomas Jefferson, the nation's third president. On the back, his famous home Monticello. It looks like just another nickel. But for collectors, the 1953D is full of surprises. Now, here's the important fact. The Denver Mint struck more than 59 million nickels that year. That might sound like a huge number, and it is. But survival in high grade is where things get interesting. Most of these coins went straight into circulation. They were used for years, in jukeboxes, payphones, gas stations, and grocery stores. That heavy use means uncirculated survivors are far scarcer than you'd think. In average circulated condition, a 1953D might only bring 10 to 50 cents. That's the kind of coin you could find in change and not think twice about. But the story doesn't end there. When you start talking about higher grades, the prices climb quickly. An MS-63 coin with only light marks can bring $20 to $30. Push it to MS-65, and now you're looking at $75 to $150. But the real magic happens with gems. An MS-66 example might sell for $500 to $200. An MS-67, which is nearly flawless, can go for $2,500 to $5,000. And here's where the tension builds. Coins with full steps. On the reverse, the steps of Monticello are a test of strike quality. The Denver Mint in the early 1950s was notorious for weak strikes, which means fully defined steps are incredibly rare. Collectors who build registry sets, the best of the best, will pay astonishing prices for them. For example, a 1953D Jefferson nickel graded MS-67 with full steps has crossed the auction block for $25,000. Another specimen with blazing luster and perfectly sharp details shattered expectations when it sold for $41,400. And here's the kicker. Experts believe that if a perfect MS-68 full steps is ever discovered, it could fetch over $125,000. Yes, 6 figures for a nickel worth 5 cents at face value. Now, think about that. Imagine walking into an auction room. The bidding starts modest, maybe $5,000, then $10,000. Collectors stare at each other, determined not to lose. The numbers climb. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and then the hammer falls. One single nickel commands a price higher than a brand new luxury car. That's the power of rarity. That's the power of collector demand. But here's something most people don't realize. You could still find one of these coins in the wild. They turn up in estate sales, inherited collections, old coin jars, and sometimes even in bank-wrapped rolls of nickels. It's rare, but it happens. And every collector dreams of being the one who discovers a hidden gem. If you do find a 1953D in high grade, here's what you need to do. Handle it only by the edges. Don't ever clean it. Cleaning destroys value. Send it for certification at PCGS or NGC. Once graded, you'll need to decide how to sell it. If it's a common grade, local shops or eBay will work fine. But if it's gem, quality, especially with full steps, the real money is in major auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers. That's where serious registry collectors compete, and that's where six-figure results happen. Now, let's step back and appreciate the history. By 1953, the Jefferson nickel had already been around for 15 years. It was introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel. The design by Felix Schlag captured the spirit of the time. Modern, clean, and patriotic. But coins like the 1953D remind us that even in the middle years of a series, there are treasures waiting to be found. And that's the lesson here. Sometimes the coins that look the most ordinary hide the greatest surprises. The 1953D Jefferson nickel might seem common, but in the right condition, it transforms into a six-figure rarity. So if you've got a jar of nickels at home, or you're sorting through a collection you inherited from a grandparent, don't ignore the 1953D. It could be just another 5-cent coin, or it could be your ticket to a life-changing discovery. Because in the world of coins, history, rarity, and demand collide, turning pocket change into treasure. And the 1953D Jefferson nickel is living proof. The year was 1952. America. was changing fast. Televisions were entering living rooms, cars had chrome and fins, and the US Mint was still striking Jefferson nickels. At first glance, the 1952 Jefferson nickel doesn't seem like much. It has the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front and Monticello on the back. Nothing unusual, right? But the truth is, this ordinary-looking coin hides some jaw-dropping stories. The Philadelphia Mint struck about 64 million nickels that year. That's a healthy mintage, so most collectors assume they're common. And yes, in circulated condition, you'll find them for just 5 cents to $1. You could literally find one in change and think it's worthless. But here's where it gets interesting. When you look at mint state survivors, the game changes. A bright, clean MS-63 will fetch $10 to $20. An MS-65? You're now talking $75 to $150. But collectors don't stop there. They chase perfection. The real prizes are the full steps coins. On the reverse, look at Monticello. The stairs leading up to the building are incredibly hard to strike fully. In 1952, the Philadelphia Mint strikes were weak, so finding a coin where every step is sharp and unbroken is extremely rare, and collectors are willing to pay whatever it takes for these. Auction records prove it. A 1952, Jefferson nickel and MS-66 with full steps sold for $8,000, another in blazing luster. MS-67 with full steps rocketed all the way to $27,600, and here's the shocking part. Experts believe if a flawless MS-68 full steps example appears, it could easily shatter the market, hitting $135,000 or more. That's 6 figures for a nickel worth 5 cents. Imagine sitting in an auction hall. The auctioneer starts at $5,000, a hand goes up, then $10,000, another hand. The room gets tense. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. The bidding war is real, and it's all for a little nickel most people overlook. That's the power of rarity. Now let's talk about how you might find one. Coins like this often turn up in old estate sales, inherited collections, or forgotten coin jars in attics and basements. Roll searching, buying rolls of nickels from the bank and checking them, is another way lucky collectors stumble across high-grade examples. And the thrill of discovering a hidden treasure is what keeps the hunt alive. So what should you do if you find a 1952 nickel that looks sharp? First, handle it only by the edges. Second, never clean it. Cleaning kills value. Third, if it looks like a gem, especially with strong steps, send it to PCGS or NGC for certification. Once graded, you've got options. If it's a modest coin, eBay or local coin shops are fine. But if you've got a monster grade, especially MS-67 full steps, your best bet is the big auction houses, heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, or great collections. That's where the deep-pocketed registry collectors fight over top coins, and that's where you'll see life-changing results. Let's not forget the history behind it. By 1952, the Jefferson nickel had been in production for 14 years. Designed by Felix Schlag, it replaced the Buffalo nickel in 1938. For decades, these coins quietly circulated in American pockets, vending machines, and gas stations. Most people didn't think twice, but hidden among them were a handful of survivors, struck so sharply and preserved so perfectly that today they're considered treasures. And here's the real takeaway. In the world of coin collecting, rarity isn't always about low mintage. Sometimes it's about condition, strike quality, and survival. The 1952 Jefferson nickel proves that. So the next time you look at a pile of nickels, don't overlook the ordinary. That dull old 1952 could be just a nickel, or it could be worth $135,000. That's the magic of coin collecting, turning pocket change into history, and sometimes into fortune.